Yeah, I could see. Thank you for the point, Will Mosley. I appreciate it. No, I mean, listen, the thing about the NFL that I guess I enjoy as someone who watches kind of casually now is that every once in a while, I mean, it's just random. The whole thing feels very random. And so yesterday, the big story of the day obviously is Aaron Rodgers, and understandably so, and we'll get into that. But can someone please explain to me what happened with Ryan Fitzpatrick yesterday, and also what happened with the Baltimore Ravens? Because did anyone play Ryan Fitzpatrick in fantasy yesterday?
No,
anyone in the universe?
No one even has him.
There's nobody owned Ryan Fitzpatrick in fantasy. Nobody, and as a avid daily fantasy player, people didn't pick Ryan Fitzpatrick as a value play in daily fantasy. But I will say this, and I was reading this, it's a crazy thing, and it's kind of a testament to the type of player Ryan Fitzpatrick is. He has more career touchdown passes than Troy Aikman and Michael Vick.
That's absolutely incredible.
Ryan Fitzpatrick has been in the league for 15 years. He's been a starter for most of the last 10. And yeah, he was insane on Sunday. And what I'm trying to say isn't to say that wasn't super surprising, but I do think that at some point, if you're one of those top, probably 30 quarterbacks in the NFL, you can get hot, and it's just a matter of time. Like, everybody's going to have a great game, and he had his great game. And the Saints, I think you're kind of on both ends. It isn't so much about what happened with Ryan Fitzpatrick and what happened with Joe Flacco. It's what happened with the Bills and the Saints. The Bills were a playoff team who didn't lose anything on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, Alec, let me just say this as someone who started the Saints yesterday in several fantasy leagues. It's 1 week, right? And so I'm not going to sit here the whole show and be like, oh, it's pretty reactionary because it's only 1 week. They did look really bad yesterday, and I don't know how to explain that in X's and O's. But I will say I did watch a lot of that game yesterday because Drew Brees is my fantasy quarterback in an important league, and they were really bad at tackling. For an NFL team, they missed a noticeable amount of tackles, and it made a huge difference. And then, of course, Ryan Fitzpatrick he looked like Joe Namath.
I pick somebody better than Joe Namath. Like, I don't think Joe Namath ever had a 400-yard.
But that's the thing about
his career. Like, isn't that crazy?
Okay, that's fine. Joe Namath probably also didn't have a 0 touchdown, 6 interception game in his career, and Ryan Fitzpatrick has that also. So, just explain it, please. Someone explain that to me. How is there a person that exists in the league right now who could give you 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, or the opposite? It's incredible.
Yeah, man. He's one of the most fun players to watch if he's not your quarterback. Because if he's your quarterback, I can't imagine that it's fun trotting in every week in, week out and being like, all right, Fitzmagic, let's see if you got it this week, or let's see if you're going to throw like 3 interceptions and throw for 52 yards total. But as a fan of a team who doesn't have Ryan Fitzpatrick and hasn't ever had Ryan Fitzpatrick, he is so awesome to watch because of that ability to truly swing either way. And yeah, yesterday he looked awesome. I thought the Saints were ridiculous for sticking with man defense the whole time when they got torched the entire game. And like you said, didn't know how to tackle. But it was awesome to watch on that end. I do think the Bills thing, Alec, to your point, they were a playoff team a year ago. That playoff team was a bit of an aberration, don't you feel? Like, can we always count that one of the 2 wild card playoff teams is usually not really warranted as deserving to be called a playoff team going into the next year, man? Like, they swung into a wild card situation where we can all agree that most of those, at least one of the 2 wild cards in each division every year, like, really don't have a full chance that, the other teams do. So, and I would consider the Bills that of last year. Like, I don't think that they were this like great playoff powerhouse that's unbecoming of like getting torched the next season. They weren't that great last season. They squeaked into the playoffs, and I think it's going to be a long season for Buffalo.
It's more, I 100% agree with that last part, but I think it's more the way they got torched, right? That is a demoralizing score, but a score that you just can't let happen. And the other part of that is the reason they were a borderline playoff team, even a mediocre team at best last year, was their defense, which they didn't really lose anything from, and they actually added to. And the defense got torn up. I mean, I think that's tough when you don't have an offense that's really playing in front of you, and that's what happens when you turn in Tyrod Taylor for, a player whose most notable football achievement is 5 interceptions in 1/2, and that's what you get with Nathan Peterman, which is pretty much what you got on Sunday as well. And then I think with the Saints, I think this kind of points to the fact that maybe last year the Saints defense was pumped up a little bit by the fact that they probably had the most able backfield in football last year between Ingram and Kamara. And you were really able to grind out the clock a little bit and keep teams off the field. So, that can make a good defense look great.
So yesterday I'm sitting at home and I'm flicking through Sunday Ticket, and all I can think to myself every time Nathan Peterman throws an interception is, how bad must Josh Allen be? I mean, if the Bills are trotting out Nathan Peterman, who is averaging 3.5 interceptions per start in the NFL, how unready must Josh Allen be to play in an NFL game?
Man, how did you beat Alex's incredible statistic of the show already with that? That
I have so many
in the book right there, like 3.5 per start. He's incredibly bad at the game of football, and I think he should start all season.
He might. He might, right? Like, the tenor in the Bills organization right now is that Peterman is the guy. And if Peterman is the guy, then it seems like the Bills have they already admitted that was a horrible failure of a draft pick? Because you cannot tell me that another professional quarterback is a worse option than Nathan Peterman. He has to be at the bottom of the list. He is at the bottom of the power ranking.
Well, it's not just Nathan Peterman. They also had A.J. McCarron and decided that they didn't want him and got rid of him, and then still decided that Nathan Peterman was better than Josh Allen. So really, how bad must Josh Allen be if they're charting out Nathan Peterman and they got rid of A.J. McCarron as well? They have a situation on their hands.
I mean, or how committed are they to just being terrible? Is that another part of this? Is you draft a quarterback who is the very least a year away from being a year away, probably, with Josh Allen, and you decide that,
Alec, come on. You're not going to sit here and say right now that you think that they made a sort of that they do you think are you saying that they think that Josh Allen may be ready in a couple of years, or are you arguing right now that they made a mistake because they're trying to?
No, I think that they think that Josh Allen is probably too. I think that Josh Allen is still their franchise quarterback. I just think that he's their franchise quarterback who will be starting in 2 years, a year or 2 years.
Okay, like, but Alec, admit that it's got to be concerning in that building that he couldn't beat out a guy of Nathan Peterman's ability.
I don't think the plan was ever for him to beat anybody out, though. That's what I'm trying to say. Is I think that, and that was pretty. I mean, that was pretty well known coming into even the draft. Josh Allen did not have the kind of playing pedigree or some of the finesse needed to be a starting NFL QB. I mean, Sam Bradford looked terrible, and Josh Rosen didn't beat him out. Tyrod Taylor didn't play well, and Baker Mayfield didn't beat him out. So when you think about it, it's not like, aside from Sam Darnold, who actually seems to be playing pretty well right now, all of the quarterbacks drafted in front of him are in a somewhat similar situation. His is just, a little more shameful.
So let me get this straight real quick. You're pitching the idea that the Buffalo Bills organization going into this year's draft was like, we were a playoff team last year. We're going to add to this defense, but then going into the draft, we're going to draft a quarterback who we know is not going to be good for 2 years, so that we can potentially be high in the draft for the next 2 years and get high draft picks the next 2 years to be good when he's good.
Yeah, to an extent.
Okay, but then why retool that defense that was a playoff defense last year? To your point, why not sell all of it high?
I mean, they retooled, but they retooled in the draft specifically with Tremaine Edmonds, who is in his own right a somewhat developmental player in the fact that he's only 19 years old. And he actually played well. He had a forced fumble. He looked big and good and athletic. I just think that at some point, especially in the NFL and in most leagues, the NFL and probably the NBA more so than others, there's a point where you have to look at your team and be like, all right, the real truth is we could never win a championship and probably not a playoff game, and we do need to blow things up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And if that's their plan, then more power to them. I'm not sure that Josh Allen was still the right pick to be ready in 2 years. I might have gone with, one of the guys who could start this year and just, sit him for another year maybe. But those 2 games were electric. The game of the night, we all saw it. Everyone watched it. It was the best thing on television. We had a Paul Pierce-esque in the finals move by Aaron Rodgers. He has his knee landed on. He goes out. He's carted off. He comes back only to literally rip the hearts out of Bears fans everywhere in the most Aaron Rodgers, Packers-esque way to do it possibly. And as someone who is a fan of the Packers, yes, once he came back in, I did have unwavering faith. The second he went out, all hope was lost because we were trotting out Max, quarterback from last year, and we literally had the best defensive player in the world on the other side of the ball. And I think that he just proved that every cent that he got paid was worth it. Because literally starting the game knowing that I had the best quarterback in the league on my team, I was shivering because I could hear his collarbone crying watching Khalil Mack stretch on the other side of the field. And I was scared to death it was going to happen. And that sequence of that ripped away fumble and that pick six was some of the scariest, most impressive defensive football anyone has ever watched.
Okay, so if Aaron Rodgers is not a freak of nature last night, the narrative today is that Khalil Mack is the new Lawrence Taylor. He looked unblockable last night in a way that I have never seen a football player look since possibly the Jadeveon Clowney play at South Carolina. But he looked like that on every single play he was on the field. He looked, I don't know if he looks 30 pounds bigger than he did when he was with Oakland. Do you feel that? Or did you notice that last night? Because
dude, he's wearing bigger shoulder pads or something. He has the Brian Urlacher look going on strong.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. He's embracing being the star linebacker for the Chicago Bears. And like all these things that we love to talk about that make sports better, when the Yankees are good, when the Red Sox are good, when Tiger Woods is playing well, it's the same thing here. It makes sports great.
I have an alternative storyline.
Of course.
Will, are you not worried that Aaron Rodgers sprained something in his knee and was limping around for the rest of the half?
Dude, I'm terrified of it. And yeah, our team has some flaws, but
flaws, bro. You got no receivers.
Yeah.
Flaws? He's lodging.
Actually,
football.
Randall Cobb looked great.
Okay.
I will agree with that. Randall Cobb looked as good as he's looked in 3 years.
A little fluky.
Yeah, no, it's a little fluky. And yet, wouldn't you say that like half of his Hail Marys have been a little fluky? Like it's just stuff that man makes happen that doesn't make sense to anyone who watches the game of football. Why one quarterback is able to do certain things and just have extra things happen on top of it does not make any sense, but it continues to happen. Do I have faith that this is necessarily a Super Bowl winning team? No. Would that terrify me more if we hadn't already locked him down long term? Yes. But to be honest, man, if like we develop a lot this season and he comes back and goes healthy at it next season, I can look long term because I don't have to worry about him leaving because of a bad situation because we've signed him for the money.
Okay, hear what I'm about to say very carefully, Will. Aaron Rodgers is my new favorite team in the NFL. Just like sports is great when the Chicago Bears have a great linebacker, a star. The NFL is perfect when Aaron Rodgers is balling out on one leg. And he's my man crush. Like I don't even know where to start with it, dude. I was texting. Damn it, I didn't want to say dude tonight. I was texting Mac Young last night because we play in this fantasy league when Aaron Rodgers went down. Everyone thought he was done. Every single person watching that game literally thought they saw the Green Bay Packers season die in one play. And then he came back and led an incredibly significant comeback on the biggest stage in the regular season sport.
Bro,
And
I went to bed.
It was perfect. It was perfect. You went to bed?
I went to bed. I literally went to bed, kept my laptop open, and was laying there after the Khalil Mack interception for a touchdown and was like, there's no way that I should stay up if Aaron Rodgers is out. And I was just waiting for the report that he was going to be out for the rest of the game, and I was going to close my laptop. And then he trotted his beautiful self out for the third quarter. And yeah, he might have been limping a little bit, and there was some tenderness, obviously, after the game. And yeah, the MRI today is going to reveal a lot that goes on and what exactly is wrong. But hey, man, we won our rival game on opening night against the Chicago Bears when the best linebacker in football was having one of the greatest defensive games that any of us have ever seen. So no, today I'm not going to be anything but happy.
I thought the scary part, well, an interesting part of that, they were one drive away from not putting Aaron Rodgers in the game and just letting Deshaun Kaiser like have the rest of the game to himself and try to figure it out. Because I think if the Bears scored another touchdown or even had a field goal, they would have thought there's no chance we're going to win. Our guys, he's still padded up, he's good to go, but we're not going to put him in because there's no way we win this game. But luckily, they didn't score. They put Aaron Rodgers in, and he scored all your points in the fourth quarter. It was an incredible game. And then right at halftime, it was like they made a comment like the Bears haven't had this big of a lead in like since 2007 going into halftime, and then they blow it to Aaron Rodgers coming back in the fourth quarter, not even having the whole half, comes back in the fourth quarter and just roasts them. It hurts to be a Bears fan.
But also, I think it feels pretty good to be a Bears fan right now. As the person who's probably the least bit of a fan of the group here on this podcast, like, don't you think today people feel very positively if you're a Bears fan? You have – okay, I understand Von Miller exists, but he was unblockable. I'm just overwhelmed by him.
But just like today, I'm nothing but happy because we won. No Bears fan is going to sit here today and say they're optimistic because they just watched Aaron Rodgers.
I disagree.
Torch them. They might say they're optimistic for the future, but right now, the only thing going through their minds is, holy shit, he did it again. He's never going to stop doing it. Every time he's going to do it, we never have a chance.
I agree with Will.
Me too.
Well, what I really want to know, because this brings up an interesting point, because I do think that, and I think you can be optimistic about the future of your team, but losing sucks. Now, Mac Young, I have a question for you. What does it feel like to tie?
Well, when I heard the news, I was at work, having Gamecast on my phone while I definitely shouldn't have been. And I got to say, there was a little bit of smirk. I got smirked a little bit when I saw they tied, because if there was any team to stop a pretty much 2-year run of complete losing, it would be the Bears. I mean, it would be the Browns. Excuse me. The Browns are the only team in the NFL who would break a winless streak or break a losing streak with a tie. And I mean, for whatever reason, they couldn't move the ball, even though they got 3 interceptions off Ben Roethlisberger and 2 fumbles, and they only scored 21 points. I don't understand how you do that. But the fact that they played with the Steelers, which are going to be like the top 4 team in the NFL, debatable, but whatever. Was still a win, even though they tied. I'm the optimistic Bears fan right now. That's like looking
you're
like
the optimistic Browns fan, so
it's
a little bit more.
like you just were talking about the Bears, like they got to feel good that like the future looks bright. The Browns, the future looks bright. Like the defense, everyone that they added in the draft, the defense got a lot better. The offense still has some things to work out, but it looked like all the pieces that they got over the offseason were good moves. Mm-hmm. I thought that showed yesterday.
You want to hear an interesting stat?
I would love to.
Do you know who the winningest quarterback at Cleveland since the Browns became a team again in the 90s is?
Yeah, Big Ben.
Ben Roethlisberger.
No question. Yeah. They play 2 times a year. Yeah.
Put it up on the poll, please. Who has the better stat, Alec or Andrew? Mac, the Browns are off to their best start since 2004, and they tied yesterday.
Yeah, that's great. Moving forward.
And just as the Browns are moving forward, so are we as a show. You are listening to From the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. Keep it right here. We'll be right back.
I found the one more stat that y'all need to hear that I hope that y'all saw over the weekend. So the Browns are +5 in takeaways in that game.
Oh, I saw this stat.
The Browns came back to the NFL. They're 132-4-1. The Browns are responsible for 2 of the 4 losses and the tie.
Let's open. We'll open the next segment with that.
Can you say that again? Because everyone said they heard that, but I haven't heard this. So
okay.
Yeah, say it again.
Do we want to say it when we open back up?
I want you to say it. I want you to say it now.
Okay. The Browns are +5 in takeaways today. Since the Browns returned to the NFL, teams with a turnover margin of +5 or better in a game are 132-4-1. The Browns are responsible for 2 of the 4 losses and the tie.
All right. There was also something that said they had – it was their first takeaway. It was their first interception yesterday since week 6 of last year.
Damn.
Just an abysmal stat. That wasn't it, but it was super early on last year was the last time they had an interception. Oh.
Dude, did you see this one the other day that was none of the Browns' first-round picks from 2012 through 2016 lasted more than 3 years?
They're all gone.
Trent Richardson, Bartavius Mingo, Justin Gilbert, Danny Shelton, Cam Irving, Corey Coleman, Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel.
And now Corey Coleman. Well, I guess he was a 3rd round. Either way, he's gone too.
Mac, Bartavius Mingo went to high school with Teague?
I think I did hear that. But if there was someone in the NFL to go to Salisbury, it would be someone with a name like that.
Bartavius Mingo, right? Oh.
Yeah, no question.
So what we've got? What, the Serena cartoon?
Yeah, I mean U.S. Open stuff. It was a big weekend for all the U.S. Open stuff.
To be honest, I don't know who won the men's match. I'm guessing it was Djokovic.
it was Djokovic beat Del Potro. It was
I knew it
in
was
straight
Djokovic, Del
sets.
Potro.
It was pretty dominant, but I mean, it wasn't like. I mean, Del Potro was playing really well.
Can we
just
talk
wasn't
about it?
dominant.
All right, listen, I don't want to do tennis talk for a long time, but I watched a ton of U.S. Open.
Yeah,
Like a borderline pathetic
3 matches
amount of the U.S. Open.
yeah.
I watched.
Hey, everybody, hold on. Turn your volume down a little bit because I'm getting an echo somewhere. Okay. Oh, Mac, I do have. Sorry, I forgot to text you Mac Miller songs earlier.
I have one that I love that I really wish I could remember the name to, and it's old.
Like how old?
Mine's probably on. I mean, it's probably on Best Day Ever, Blue Slide Park.
Mine's on Kids.
Yeah. See,
We'll
which
figure it
one
out.
is it off Kids?
Tell me later. I'm not going to record. I'm not going to do it till tomorrow. So
Yeah, I got you.
Listen to it tonight and send me a text.
You guys trying to keep tabs on the game,
I
real
am.
time.
I'd actually love for you to somehow keep it on that.
Where do you guys want to go next?
U.S. Open, I guess. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that into Serena.
Yeah, Alec,
Okay.
I have one question. What song was it off Kids?
Oh, it was Nikes. It was Nikes on My Feet.
Okay, word.
I think
so.
that's
I
just
figured
like
it would
great,
be.
The first 30 seconds of that song, even if just like the production in that is great music.
Yeah. All right. So, how long have we been recording roughly? I got
like 25 minutes.
Okay.
What's the
score?
score?
The score right now is 10-7. The Jets are leading. And were you asking about the game, Mac? I'm sorry if you weren't.
No, I was. You were right.
The Jets are leading 10-7, and it appears that they're about to punt. I believe they're about to punt the ball back to the Jets. I'm not sure where their field position is. It's 4th down, so they're either going to try a field goal or their Stafford's off
4th
the
and
field.
7.
Stafford has
Detroit
played
20.
terribly.
Yeah, they're punting. Yeah, they're going to punt to Detroit here. I
saw that Sam Darnold's first play in the NFL was an interception.
Was it really?
Return for a touchdown.
Yeah, literally the first throw of the game was a pick six.
Oh, I didn't. Wait, so you're saying the Jets 7 points right now?
No,
Sam Darnold.
Lions 7 points. Yeah,
Darnold threw a pick six.
Right.
Stafford has thrown 2 picks though, and is 5 for 13. So he's being
there you go.
He's being outplayed.
Guess who's on my bench right now, Al Kowecki? That would be one Andrew Luck, who put up a nice, very serviceable 20 points yesterday.
I think Jared Goff is my backup QB. Also, Matt Stafford is like one of 4 quarterbacks with seasons of more than 5,000 yards, and one of 2 with multiples. So
he's also one of 1 quarterback to play with Calvin Johnson.
That's true.
That is true.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't really believe in keeping a true backup quarterback per se in fantasy. I mean, I understand. I guess I have. If you have a good enough quarterback, you only need him for 1 week anyway. And so if you lose the 1 week because of the quarterback, it's probably not that big of a deal anyway.
I do actually. I got lucky. Oh no, sorry, I was looking at a different league. He's my backup in the league. I do explicitly for the fact that I think that further down the line, quarterbacks, especially ones who are playing well, I think Pat Mahomes probably would have been a good stash kind of guy because you have no idea how good he's going to be. And right now it looks like he could be great. Are great trade bait, especially if you're, people who owned Aaron Rodgers last year. You're never as high on your backup quarterback as you are on somebody else's.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably true, but I mean, probably true for most positions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for listening tonight. My name is Andrew Levin, and you are listening to From the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. I'm here with my very good friends, Mr. Mac Young, Mr. Will Mosley, and Alec Uwecki. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. And a great day in the NFL yesterday, for sure. But I can't believe that I'm about to admit this, but I have to say there was a point where those NFL games were going on yesterday, and I had my eye on the U.S. Open tennis, and that is not something that I ever would have said before yesterday.
Really? Because I mean, I don't know. I feel like I was switching back and forth on both avenues I had watching. I was switching my TV back and forth, and simultaneously I was switching the game cast on my phone to tell me the score of the other. You see? So like sometimes I wanted to watch tennis. Obviously, once the Packers game really started rolling, no attention was being drawn from there. But I mean, that Del Potro match with Djokovic winning his third US Open was incredible. Yeah, it was straight sets. For anyone that didn't get to watch it, do not be deterred by the fact that it was straight sets. It was an incredible match. Djokovic played phenomenal. Del Potro played a really good match. Just, Djokovic had the stuff. It's the stuff that makes him, I think, the tied for the third most majors of all time now.
Yep.
This third U.S. Open win, which I think only Federer has done. So, I mean, he's phenomenal. It was a great match. And that happening on the same weekend that we have a great weekend of opening football is, as a sports fan, all you could ask for, no matter which one you were watching.
Sure. So a couple things to get to on the men's side before we get, over to Serena and everything that happened there, because there's a lot of interesting stuff to dig into. People love to say that Federer is the greatest men's player of all time, maybe the greatest player of all time, period. And I think that there's some validity to that argument. But don't those people also forget that you have Djokovic and Nadal sitting at enough majors with enough years left in their career behind Federer that they could easily reach and surpass him?
Yeah, I mean, I think what loses Nadal on that air is kind of Nadal is almost in a lot of people's heads who aren't avid tennis fans, the Mickelson to Federer's Tiger, where it's like, yeah, he's great, but he's always been that one step behind on major counts, even though he has, obviously the clear advantage on clay courts every time. And I think obviously, the injury factor is what it keeps most people from thinking that Nadal's really going to truly reach and surpass Federer when he's still playing. And I mean, I know as someone who's always been a Federer fan, who's always cheered for Federer to, keep those records and become the greatest men's tennis player of all time and really hold that. There was a point a couple years ago where the only thing in the back of my mind when I thought about being a Federer fan was, holy shit, Djokovic is going to pass him. Djokovic is coming up hot on his ass. And he cooled off a little bit there, you can say, but he's really regaining his stuff. And I'm with you, Andrew. Like, he has the ability to take those records away. He's so tall. That serve comes from so high. And I think that final point when he spiked it down to the left on Del Potro and won and collapsed to the ground, his full extension on that truly shows just how much of a freak athlete that guy is. He is so long that he just looks like he was engineered in a laboratory to play tennis.
You saying Djokovic or Del Potro?
Djokovic.
Djokovic is not that tall or that long.
Well,
His
not like Del
extension
Potro.
is phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, Del Potro, yeah, he's that. But, dude, how tall is Djokovic?
He's got to be like maybe 6 feet.
Yeah, I don't think
I want to say he's like 6'2", 6'3".
He's
Del Potro's 6'6".
Yes, Del Potro
It's
is
going to be powered down to John Isner and Del Potro, but I just, yeah, I think what really is his. He just like is able to psych people out with just kind of being a little bit nuts on the court, and then he's just a phenomenal athlete.
Mac Young, put it up on the poll. Do you consider Novak Djokovic a tall person? Because I do not. Mac
No.
Young, you do not either.
you do
Clearly
not.
not.
He is 6'2".
I listen. Yes,
Is he? Because I've
Walmart-
always he just seems tall to me.
Well,
Walmart.
he's lanky. He's very lanky, especially
Yeah.
compared to like Federer and Nadal,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. He's more
who are
lanky, but
also
not
6'1".
right. So that's my takeaway one. My takeaway two is the greatness of the match. That was, of course, only 3 sets. But if you turn it on late in the second set there when they're playing through that second set tiebreak and Del Potro for a second there takes the lead in that tiebreak and the roof on the stadium is about to blow off if he wins another point to take it to 5-3. That's a super exciting moment and a moment where if he continues to move on and win that tiebreak, he's probably got a really good chance to win the match. And so I really enjoyed it. I think on the men's side, the better player won, obviously, but Juan Martín del Potro is such an unbelievable person to root for. There are just certain people in sports where they've overcome so much, whether it be injury in the case of Delpo or, whatever other adversity it may be. He's such an easy guy to root for. And when you pair a great player like Novak Djokovic, someone who is probably going to chase Federer's number and the all-time number at some day toward the end of his career with a guy like Delpo who is so likable, so charismatic, so talented and big and able to hit the ball as hard as anyone in the game right now, it creates a really, really fun event to watch. And I have to say, I think that I watched more of this U.S. Open than I've ever watched of any other tennis tournament before. And I'm not someone that plays tennis. I didn't grow up playing the game. I just enjoy watching it because I like Juan Martín del Potro, and there are so many other great players that you can sort of put him against in a finale, and that's fun.
I have to agree with you. I mean, I didn't grow up playing tennis, but I grew up around tennis. Everyone in my family played tennis. And I think what made that a great final is you have two guys who are completely opposite of each other. You have Novak Djokovic, who is lanky, who I think is short or smaller, and who's more of a showman and kind of comes across as like an arrogant prick, but is still an incredible athlete. And then you have Delpo, who hits the ball hard as can be, who's a likable guy. And with the combination of those two, you have a great match. Someone hitting it. Yeah, you have a showman. You have a guy who's hitting it as hard as he can, playing his heart out. And that makes for one great match, one good finals.
Will Mosley, what was your biggest takeaway on the women's side?
As good as the men's final was, the women's final was tainted. We didn't get to celebrate this young phenom, take on the greatest tennis player ever, arguably.
And
we
beat
didn't
her.
truly get to appreciate, how well she played the entire tournament, how awesome of a match that could have truly been if it would have been played outright without controversy. I don't think it's fair to Osaka. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
To
Osaka.
say that Serena was robbed, because that's not fair. You can't
Agreed.
say that. Osaka played phenomenally.
Agreed.
She deserves that championship as much as anyone. What went on during the entire match, though, that filled all of the headlines today was not fair. And for anyone who didn't watch the closing finale when Osaka was given the tournament trophy, was one of the most disgusting things to watch ever, because she had to pull her visor down on her face because of the boos coming because of what happened with the referee and all of the other nonsense during the match, which pulled away from her pulling an upset over the greatest women's tennis player of all time.
Yeah, it was one of the craziest award ceremonies I've ever seen in any sports. The fact that Tom Rinaldi goes up, well, first off, you just hear boos as soon as like they start giving out awards, they start congratulating everyone. You just hear boos from the fans. The president of USTA starts talking. She just gets harassed, boos. Tom Rinaldi starts asking questions of Serena, boos. And then they move to Osaka, and he asks her, how do you feel about just beating Serena? And she says, I like to defer your question. And then just starts bawling and says, I'm so sorry that I beat Serena in the finals. And everyone's just like, what? You're 20 years old. You just beat possibly the best tennis player of all time on her home court, and you just had your first major, and you are sorry? Like, and she was in tears the whole time. Like, she was not enjoying the fact that she just won one of the biggest major. Like, she's 20 years old and won a major against Serena Williams, and feels terrible about it. Crazy.
I mean, you guys make such good points. It's the first time that I can really ever recall in my life that an athlete apologized for beating another professional. I mean, I can't really recall a time where that's ever happened. And so, I really agree with what Will said before. She won the first set and played exceptionally well. And then, Serena, who, I mean, let's be honest, she has a tendency to be a little bit of a sore loser because she's ultra competitive and she's great. And most ultra competitive, great athletes are a little bit of sore losers. She lost herself a little bit in the second set. I mean, I think that's fair to say. There's been a lot of discussion, I think, since it happened about, some of the larger issues happening around what happened on the court with Serena. But, I think what it really comes down to is, she felt like the match was sort of slipping away to her. And, I think that referee stepped on her toes at a really bad time to do so. And, Osaka had an amazing moment in her professional life, quite possibly the greatest moment in her life so far, sort of, as Will Mosley said, tainted by this drama that Serena chose to create to a certain extent.
I'm not going to disagree with you that Serena, obviously had a hand in this. Anyone who's coming at it as the fact that this referee ruined everything is blinded by what went on. And anyone who says it's all Serena obviously wasn't paying attention either. I think it comes down to a rule that, as someone who doesn't avidly follow tennis, truly just doesn't make any sense to me. She got a violation for coaching when it just does seem like her coach did something that every coach does on every sideline, every time, for every point. And I know that it's been said a million times today that we've seen it on the men's side, and the same referee didn't do it just at another tournament with Rafa and all of this other things. And her coach admitted that, yeah, he was coaching, but it happens all the time. And don't get me wrong, I think that there's a misunderstanding. To an extent, Serena exacerbated the problem by going a little over the top once everything happened. I'm not going to say that this referee's a sexist or anything like that, but it would have been interesting to see how this situation would have been handled if it was a male, considering all of the language that you clearly hear her use is very, very tame for what you hear on a lot of courts. Basketball, tennis, football, I don't care. Her language was very tame to deserve her final third point violation or whatever.
Okay, so I agree with everything you just said, and here was the thing that confused me in the aftermath of of what happened with Serena Williams. Why did she not choose to make it about the coaching? Why did she I guess I understand. I get where she's coming from, because male players berate these referees. I mean, think about the things that John McEnroe said to referees back in the day that he was playing. I just think that in the press conference afterwards, if I was someone that was working with Serena on the PR of what had happened, why do you not make it about the fact that every single player in the game in an important match looks to their coach in their box, and every single player does it, as you said, Will. I don't really understand. I guess I actually agree with the premise of what she's saying about the sexism behind, sort of what she did. But I think the PR of it, I would have chosen to make it about the actual coaching, the thing that she was faulted for.
Well, from what my understanding that I've heard a lot of people say is that it wasn't so her lash out about these problems wasn't so much about the actual coaching. It's that she feels that she came to an understanding with the referee about the coaching violation and that it had been wiped. And then she got her violation, which cost her a point. And then just using that language pushed it over the top. So I think what it was a lack of, clear of communication, that he didn't stop her and say, listen, if you don't calm down, I'm going to have to deduct you or I'm going to have to give you your third violation, which is going to cost you a whole game. And it seems like a courtesy that he may have extended to a male. The coaching violation was the first of the 3 violations. And I think that because of that, that wasn't as big of a deal. If she'd have had the coaching violation and even the racket smash, I still don't think that if the third violation wouldn't have happened, I don't think that it would have ended up about a male-female thing. I think that's where it comes in with the PR. Alec?
On my end of this is kind of the reason that I will never be an avid viewer of tennis. I think we had a conversation a couple weeks ago about games that take themselves too seriously, and I think that this is the exact example of that. I'm not going to jump into conversations on whether or not there were rules violated, because I think it's clear that there were, and whether or not she may have overreacted at some point during the match, because I think she did. But I think that tennis quite specifically sets itself up to fall, to have to fall on its own sword here. It's not a sport that is adequately prepared for modern society and the modern athlete. And in that way, because the thing that infuriates me the most is that the ref in this situation does not have to make a public statement about this. And I think that if you're going to allow refereeing to come, to become such an important part of a match that is on par with, if not, a Super Bowl, a championship game in any other sport, right? I think the issue I have here in this situation is that you have the greatest player of her era being brought down, and to a level which I think is intentional by a referee who I think is trying to make a point in this situation. And I just find it disgusting.
Oh, Alec, I love you so much, man. This is from the Nose Please podcast. We'll be right back.
What?
That was awesome.
No, dude, that was great. Everything you said
awesome.
was really eloquent. You were just there's a lot of
what you said was so good. And I was like, all right, that was so well said. Let's just
and then I never really kind of tied it up.
Tennis.
All right, I'll be right back, guys. Give me 2 seconds.
Dogs. All right, yeah, me too.
Oh.
They actually did a good job on making it. Yes, sir, we did. Yeah, people are saying that it's already starting to move more and more.
Yeah. So what do we really have left to talk about?
I don't really know, to be honest.
I mean, if we want to talk about college football and how shitty week 2 is of every college football season.
Yeah, we could do that. College. I mean, that's the tough part with college football is you've got the one or two what are supposed to be marquee games in week 1, and then week 2, nobody wants to play a big game week 2 because you're making week 1 adjustments. But this was kind of a forgettable week.
Dude, it was so bad. It was so bad.
Well, it's like I feel like there's this point in college football
There was
where
one good game, Clemson, Texas A&M, and that wasn't even really a good game. That was just Clemson trying to lose.
Yeah, well, exactly. It wasn't a game that was set up to be good. It was a game that kind of fell off the rails for Clemson towards the end.
I'm just gonna read through scores for you, Alec. I'm gonna go down on the app for the top 25. This was the scores this week. 42-12, 17-62, 31-10, 49-3, 45-14, 49-21, 62-14, 57-7, 41-17, 52-3, 24-16. That was the closest one, I think, besides Clemson, and that's Ball State, Notre Dame.
No, Arizona State, Michigan State, I think.
Yeah, Arizona State, Michigan State was a close game. 13-16.
But my problem with this part of football, right? The exciting thing that happens outside of those,
Florida. Oh, cool.
Close that door, sweetie. Cat. Hey, Cat. Will you close that door? Yeah, thank you.
Theodora, will you close that fucking door, please?
Dude, okay, so here's the thing, and I'm not gonna make it a whole big deal, but you know how this is how I think that storms are gonna be bad. When animals start doing weird shit, that's when you have to be concerned. And this is what I will say right now. Not only has Thea been weirder than she normally is, but I haven't seen a bird near my apartment in 3 days.
Oh yeah, that's bad news.
Get out of there. No.
I 100% believe in that.
I'm not even kidding. I was actually last night or yesterday afternoon, I was thinking the same thing, and I was like, no, it's just in my head. It's just in my head. So this morning, specifically, set an alarm to get up early, and I was like, I'm gonna see if the birds are chirping. Silence. 6 a.m. this morning, nothing but absolute stillness at a time in the year when usually there are still birds really chirping. And so I'm not a superstitious guy, but what I am is someone who believes in nature and the ability of animals to tell when shit is about to get really fucked up. And I have this huge wooded area behind my house, and usually there are just animals all the time. There's nothing. Everything is gone. Everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
some bad juju.
I think there's some science behind that, right? I don't think that has to do with superstition. I feel like, especially birds, because they travel miles.
They feel the atmospheric pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And so, I mean, we're just sitting and waiting. I mean, not really sure. I guess every minute we're getting updates, and it seems like it's beginning to move further and further north, hopefully. But a Category 4 or 5 hurricane hitting like anywhere near us is gonna have some. I think it's probably going to have effects on the entire state, and so. I mean, it's a scary situation. It's scary to like be listening to BBC or like these national news websites, and they're talking about the place that you live, like little Myrtle Beach, the Dirtle Beach, South Carolina, and all these people are talking about it because there's this massive storm that's coming at it, and so I mean, there's just as Mac Young, I guess, cracks a beer and toast to the things that we can't control in this life. There's not a whole lot to do other than sort of sit and wait and hope that my apartment is still here when we come back. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. It's obviously a scary situation. Pretty big hurricane coming ashore.
Dude, you don't have to act all serious, man. I don't know how you transition out of that at all. It's
Thank
okay. No, you're welcome. It's okay. You can lighten up, dude. It's not a big deal. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. I mean, okay. So I really wasn't freaking out at all until earlier today. I'm on, and this is something we could get. I don't know if you guys have iPhones or use the news app as much as I do, but I go on my iPhone news app earlier, and it was something that was like, it was pretty much comparing how. Like the way that Hugo was able to destroy the southeastern U.S. when it hit in the 90s and how this could be something that would be very similar. And that was really the moment where I was like, okay, this is probably something that needs, we need to get out of here. So I'm usually the type of person that will try to ride out, especially when it looks like it's not going to be a direct hit. But the eye of the storm at this point is so large that, I'm not really sure what else to do other than leave. And we're not fucking weatherman here, man. So we don't, there's not a lot to say about it other than there appears to be this massive storm coming. And my family and I have been here for 12 years and we haven't had to deal with this yet. And so I feel just as new to this as any person would having moved here, this year. So who fucking knows?
I mean, this might maybe to a Snapchat you sent me earlier. Has there been anything out there that has been giving you comfort during these times of trying to figure out where your life is going from here?
I mean, Jeopardy, and I guess I wouldn't Jeopardy, man. I'm a nerd.
Old Alex Trebek, man, is just like settling at Andrew's soul.
I'm glad you brought it up, Max.
As he packs up his life.
I want to get your opinion on this theory that I have about Jeopardy. Do you feel that if you watch that show long enough, the questions will just repeat themselves, allowing you to sort of master the book that Trebek has of the questions that can be asked?
Part of me wants to say no, but I will say that I watch that almost every night with my parents growing up. And I think my dad is still watching that every night, or Cincinnati Reds baseball, one or the other. And I can definitely, every time I watch it now, he knows every answer like that. He just spits them out. So I think there is some truth to what you just said.
See, I don't know if that's some truth to what he said, or like, is your dad just that type of guy who has all of that knowledge by this point of his life?
Well, it's
because
both.
He watches stuff like Jeopardy and he pays attention to facts like that. And your dad just is a very well-informed guy for anyone out there who does not know Mac's father. I don't know. I don't think there's any figuring Trebek out. I think if you try to, you're going to find yourself in a deep rabbit hole and that you don't know how to get out of.
There's some deep
And
area of Reddit.
I think that maybe, Mac, your dad has just mastered not trying to figure Trebek out and just gaining as much knowledge as he can. And that's it. You just have to know everything because that's what Trebek does. He just has a book of every fact ever, and he pulls them out at random And I think that he scratches them off. I truly think he has never repeated a question in that game, and he just likes messing with people.
That can't be, though, Will. I mean, think about that. You think that he's never repeat? I mean, I'm not saying that he's repeated a question, but the thing that I'm trying to figure out in my head is there a finite number of things that can be trivialized? I mean, there's only a certain amount of
because
things.
there's new things happening every day that can then be recorded and trivialized. You can have new categories every day and have questions about them. Like they can have a new. I've watched an episode of Jeopardy where they've had a question about last year's NFL season. Like there's questions that are new, there's questions that are old, and maybe they've been repeated somewhere. I do not think on the final on-air version they have ever repeated a question, probably. Now, all of those contestants go through like rounds of surveys and stuff, and
2 rounds.
all of that stuff to get in. And I'm sure maybe some of the questions that are on those surveys may have been rotated into a show at some point. But I think once a question is in the show, it's probably retired. Because there's people like that, Andrew. There's people who've been watching this show forever who I'm sure have watched almost every episode of Jeopardy that there has ever been. And so, yeah, it would be very easy for them to just roll up there and be like, nah, I've learned all of them. So I think that Trebek has it mastered. He has it down to a T. If you try to figure him out, you'll end up in a rabbit hole.
And I think the people who accepted that they can't figure him out are those people like maybe Andrew or my father who find comfort in listening to Alex Trebek spit off questions for 30 minutes. That's from 7 to 7:30 on CBS.
What I want to know is, what game show do you think you would be best at? Because Jeopardy is, I think we would all agree, a very difficult game show, probably one of the more difficult that exists. So it got me really thinking, and earlier today, I was sort of going through them in my head and trying to process the ones where I feel like if I had to go on air tomorrow and be successful at it, the ones that I could do. And so I feel pretty confident that I could manage The Price is Right okay. And I'm not an economist, and I'm not someone that shops at grocery stores or things like that often, but The Price is Right to me feels like one that is winnable.
It's a feel thing.
I'm with you. I think The Price is Right would be a great one for you. I don't think I'd do good with it. I think I'd do good with slogans, catchphrases, stuff like that.
Catchphrases.
So I'm going to go with Wheel of Fortune.
That's a good one.
I think I could rack it up. I know there's a bit of randomness, obviously, with the wheel, and it gets difficult there at the end. But if I truly do think that if you're going to put me on any game show like that, I would do the best at Wheel of Fortune and probably the worst at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
So I was going to say the game show I would want to be on is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I'm a trivia junkie. Like that's when I'm like not setting fantasy lineups or reading sports podcasts, sports articles, listening to sports podcasts, or selling annuities. This is what I do at work. But I'm typically on this app called Sporkle that is just a bunch of different small quizzes, trivia type stuff. I actually know a guy who won Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
He won the million?
Mm-hmm. You should look it up. It's probably the most baller thing I've ever seen. There's a bunch of memes about it because on his last question, he knew the question, so he hadn't used his phone a friend thing yet, and he called his dad and was like, "Hey, Dad,
you're about
just
to
want to let you know I just won $1 million."
You know that guy?
Yeah, he goes to my church.
Seen that shit.
That's wild.
But so it seems very attainable.
So, as someone who loves trivia, Andrew, you can answer this as well. You kind of already alluded to maybe your answer to this. As a trivia junkie, which one is the GOAT? Like,
Oh, it's
is
Jeopardy.
it
Come on.
Jeopardy?
Yeah, it's
is
Jeopardy.
it Who Wants to Be
No
a
doubt about it.
Millionaire?
It's absolutely Jeopardy.
So which one is harder for you, Andrew? You said that
Oh, that's a
Jeopardy
good question.
sounds like one of the more difficult ones.
Okay,
But I mean,
that's
if
a
we're
good
going
question.
straight raw trivia, the reason I'm staying away from those two with what we're going to be best at is I'm not messing with either of those two because I don't know which one's more difficult.
All
I
right.
think that there's a human element to Jeopardy that just hitting the buzzer, right? That I find could screw you up.
I think I would want to be in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire because you have to answer maybe 3 questions. You get like 10 grand. You then use all your lifelines to get the next 3 questions, and then you can just walk away with like 25 grand.
Okay, fine.
Which you can't do in Jeopardy.
Mac, that may be so, but the thing you forget is that in Jeopardy, if you miss a question, that's $200. You lose $200. You're not eliminated from the game. I think to
I wouldn't
answer
eliminate
Will,
myself. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I would answer up to that point and then leave.
okay, fine, but Will's question was which game is harder, and the one that's harder is the one that it's sudden death. If you miss a question, no matter where you are in the game, no matter if you know you're going to walk away at a certain point, you lose. You're gone. You make 0. In Jeopardy, you still have more chances to make money. Now, I understand what you're saying, Mac. The people who have made money in Jeopardy have done it because they have won game after game after game. And as Alex said, if you can nail the 20 questions, you're there. You get $1 million, and that's the equivalent of probably winning. It's the equivalent of winning a boatload of Jeopardy games. I don't know how many, but a lot. And so I guess if you look at it as a big economy, maybe you look to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but I do think that is the harder game show. I don't think that can be disputed.
No, I think you're probably right. But I will say there is one reason why one of them is in prime time at 7 o'clock and one is now in day TV in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Absolutely. What do you have a favorite game show growing up, Will?
See, that's tough. I'd actually probably go with Wheel of Fortune. My grandma watched that and Jeopardy back to back every night. And I was always more of the Wheel of Fortune fan. I like the colorfulness of the wheel as a kid growing up. It's a lot more colorful and fun than just, fucking Alex Trebek sitting there just rattling off questions that I don't know. But that one's the GOAT. I have one that's a toss-up for a lot of people. It's right on the edge when it comes to game shows. It divides game show people in half sometimes on if it's a good game show or not. Where do you boys stand on Deal or No Deal?
Oh no, come on. Listen.
No.
All Deal or No Deal is it's a 0 and 1 game. It's like a computer algorithm. No. I'm not a big. I like Howie Mandel actually. I'm not. Some people think that he's not the most likable character. I don't mind him. What I don't like about Deal or No Deal is the whole thing. I like a game show that has it's got to have a little skill to it. It has to have at least a little bit. And if all you're doing is going on and pointing at cases with pretty women, like I get why that's a thing on television. I get why that draws people in a country like ours. But come on, man. I enjoy a game where you've got to work a little bit to make the money or to make the boat on The Price is Right.
So we've got 2 no's. Mac, where do you sit on it?
All right, I'm going to cut this out, but what was the original question?
Oh, I love it. Oh, my God. I love it so much. Oh,
Deal or no
God.
deal?
We're not cutting that out. You're not allowed to cut that out.
All right. All right. Here's where I stand with Deal or No Deal. Yeah, it's the same thing as Who Wants to Be a Millionaire to me. Because I just like the guy. Yeah, no, I mean the guy gives you a deal. He gives you a good amount of money, and the odds, like he gives you a buttload of money more than you probably should. good, and I think you should most of the time walk away with that because you don't know what's going to happen.
But is it a game show, or is it just
a
like
legit
dumb people?
game show? Like, obviously,
dude, I don't like the game. I don't like the game show. I don't like how people play it. I definitely prefer Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
So this is a
one.
full. We can
even
put it out now.
Even that Nickelodeon, like pulling goo from the nose, I'll take that one too.
Got you. So I think that's all of us here. That's 4 straight then. Feel the same way that we can actually staple it right now. This podcast is the first anti-deal or no deal podcast out there.
I think so.
It's nothing personal, Howie Mandel. We'd love to build and grow with you someday in the future, but
never touch him.
It's not a game show, bro.
No,
it's just not a game show.
I agree.
It might be a fun thing for people to watch, and like Andrew said, point at shiny cases that pretty women are holding. But it's not a game show. Give us the classics. Give us Jeopardy. Give us Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Wheel of Fortune, Price is Right. Those are the ones that we hold near and dear. If you have any other game shows, please do hit us up. Throw them our way at _the nosebleeds on Twitter.
Absolutely, man. Classic games for a classic podcast. Once again, my friends, thank you so much for listening and enjoying another episode of From the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. My name is Andrew Levin. For my good friends, Will Mosley, Mac Young, Alec Uwecki, thank you so much for listening tonight. I will keep you posted on Twitter about my whereabouts with this storm coming in on me in Myrtle Beach. But again, thank you so much for listening. Keep hitting us up on Twitter at _the nosebleeds and find our podcast on SoundCloud. Hit the search bar. Go to From the Nosebleeds Sports Podcast. That is where you will find us. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next week.
Love you guys.